Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bring the Heat, episode number 7. I'm back here again with Huzzy. Alongside us, we've also got the ever so lovely Two Tap Tony, regulars. And we've also got two guests today. If you guys would like to introduce yourself, I guess one of you go right ahead, start off.
Panda, you go ahead.
I'm shit, so is he.
Hi, I'm Trash. This is Garbage.
We're all welcome here. And I'm BluePanda. Obviously, everyone should know who.
Look at the ego is.
I know, right? Everyone should know who I am.
No, they should know who he is more than they know who I am.
Like, I'm Australia's number one most committed analyst. It's like...
Yeah.
Yo, fucking Australia's just claiming everything right now. Jesus Christ. Fucking, it's on the shirt, mate. No fear, the Kiwis here.
Yeah, see, I'm a fake Kiwi. I'm not even either Kiwi or an Aussie. I'm the cheekiest, breakiest of the southern hemisphere here. But yeah, I'm
cheeky.
I'm Cthulhu. I do yelling into the microphone for money, and I've been doing it for almost 5-6 years now.
It's like we're just outnumbering. There's 4 of us here, and this is Huzzy.
Yay! I've got good analysing skills. I'm alright.
Yeah, listen, I understand you can coach, but come on, like, doesn't it?
How's this coffee going?
It's...
I don't drink coffee. Who drinks coffee these days?
Oh, yeah.
No, not you drinking it. I'd go for a flat white though.
True.
Oh, I ain't flat.
Rest in pepes.
So yeah, we have a very interesting podcast for this episode. We're going to be talking a lot about the OCL, and we're actually getting to quite a few questions. A little bit of an interview with Cthulhu and BluePanda. We'll ask them quite a few questions. Mainly, we'll start with you, Panda, first off. How'd you get into casting in the first place?
So Cthulhu, yeah, you just mentioned, he's been doing this for 5 years. Believe it or not, I almost started a decade ago. My first foray into casting League of Legends in my first year at university, 2012. It wasn't a very long run thing. I didn't stick with it, obviously, because otherwise I'd be far further along than I am now. But basically, I joined it was originally a North American gaming community that then started a Australia New Zealand branch, and I jumped in with them and got along with them, started doing casting for them as well. The guy I originally started with, he's now gone on to more successful stuff. He does Overwatch. I decided not to stick with it, so I've taken
Good idea.
scenic route to get
Very good idea.
But yeah, basically I fucked around for about 5 years. Became a League of Legends coach. Stopped doing that. Became a caster in League of Legends. The scene died. I then watched a 6 Invitational ad. It was end of would have been 2019. I saw, the invitation was coming up. I saw an ad. I was like, League of Legends is sort of dying in the region, right? Turned around and said, we don't want to have to pay orgs the subsidy, so the players don't get anything. And the orgs turned around and said, well, we don't want to have to pay them anything at all. And it was sort of, this is going a bit sideways. I literally hit the peak of where I could as an amateur caster for League of Legends. Literally, I would have been right below the entrance for Tier 2, Tier 1. But there was just no way to break through from New Zealand, unfortunately. And so I saw Rainbow Six, and I was like, hold on, this is kind of wild. I'd played it, I'd never seen it as a competitive esports opportunity. And at that stage, I was dead set. Like, I did not know what I wanted to do for the longest bloody time. I mean, I'm turning 28 next month, and I only figured out that casting is what I want to do beginning 2019. And so, yeah, I made the switch to Rainbow Six, and I just haven't looked back.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a bit hard, especially with getting into the league. Really, is just difficult because everyone has their own little niche in there, don't they?
Yeah, 100%. It's who you know, not what you know, especially in the region.
Just so we just throw the ivory
and
tower
where
under
you
the
are as
bus,
well.
What, Tony's favourite people?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, look,
don't know who
mad
you're talking
respect to old Skimmy, another New Zealander repping it big in the international stage in casting. He's absolutely killing it on the LCO, and I'm a big fan of the current iteration of high level ANZ competitive League of Legends. The LCO team are absolutely killing it, but previous iterations not so great. Let's be honest.
Yeah, 100% agree on that one. 100%. We'll move on to you, Cthulhu. So yeah, how did you get into casting?
For me, it was I think it was at the second half of the first year or something across the lines. It was when the whole Siege and NZ community was just literally starting up, because I started things off with Siege with being kind of a bench warmer for like one of the teams that just wanted to dick around in comp for fun, and eventually a bunch of other players started let's try to cast, let's try to stream these games, like get some sort of publicity going, because by then already I think the first year of Siege kind of all elapsed, and like NA, EU, and LATAM were already starting to develop, whereas NZ was literally completely left in the colossal gutter. And pretty much the whole initial approach was like, well, other people doing, why shouldn't I try to do it? And yeah, it kind of like started off from there. Jeebus, who now unfortunately no longer a ESL admin, he used to be an ex teammate who then got kicked from team for some quote unquote misconduct, and became an ESL.
The triggers came up, quote unquote, misconduct.
We'll call it misconduct without delving too deep into all of that bag of worms. And he became an ESL admin who later on got promoted to like League Ops, and he was essentially the one who vouched for me for ESL, like, yo, hire this guy. And so kind of from there on, it kind of quickly all skyrocketed, with me doing initially Southeast Asian Pro League for Siege, which completely ruined my sleep schedule whilst I was at uni, because the games would start according to Singaporean time. So for me, it would be starting around 11, if not midnight, and finishing around 4 or 5 a.m. I would sleep for an hour, and then off I go for an 8-hour day of lectures at uni. And that would be happening like 2-3 times a week.
No one ever said casters were smart.
Honestly, out of the four of us here, I think we're all in agreement for that one. I think I had a moment recently where Tony just woke me up at 1 a.m. to cast.
My first international gig outside of ANZ was EU, so I was waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning New Zealand time for a 3 a.m. start. Yeah. So there are some questionable things that we as entertainers is probably the best way to describe it. We do to make our way in the scene.
Yeah. So like later down the line, obviously I finally managed to cop the ANZ gig. I did my first APAC LAN, which I still, like, looking back at some of the recordings of that and some of the clips, I dread rewatching that, because back then I would strangle my own self if I seen it, just for the sheer amount of mistakes, amount of stuttering, and amount of just general lack of confidence and ego. We'll get back to that. I'll say that a healthy amount of ego is needed nowadays, especially for tier 2, tier 1 of casting.
Would you say it's ego or confidence though? Because I would say it's more confidence over ego. Ego is really you're thinking you're better than you actually are, while confidence is you're trying to act better than you are.
Well, it's partially it's predominantly, I would say, confidence, but a sprinkle of ego needs to be there to essentially keep yourself still. At least in my head, how it worked, it was to motivate myself to keep on pushing, to keep up being, in my head at least, relatively better than like the target that I would, set. It was always, at the beginning, it was always a competition for me, like even whilst being a caster. So I would try to compete being the big one, like the better one and the big one. But the issue with that in the early stages came, and that's, I think, a lot of casters would be able to relate to, is when you start things off, you straight off the bat think you hot shit. And the sooner you realize that you're not, and you actually, as a matter of fact, unless you're literally like the Einstein of casting, you're not. Like, genuinely, like, the feeling of that I'm colossally and utter garbage came in like quite a little bit later, and it hit me a little bit far too hard. And rebuilding on top of it all, like rebuilding my, I guess, self-confidence, maybe again with a very slight sprinkle of ego, only started off like, I don't know, probably I would say beginning of this year / middle of last year, where it's kind of like, yeah, you know what, okay, maybe I am kind of good, maybe I still have the hot shit status.
Okay.
And but yeah, honestly, I got to cast whilst I was still in that initial phase. I still got a fuck ton of opportunities that I'm extremely grateful for, including going in 2018 to PAX Melbourne to cast the very first iteration of Six Masters, and meeting like a whole lot of people and casting in front of a crowd. and meeting a whole lot of players as well during some of those like APAC lands, some of the like Six Oceanic Cup as well, which was in 2019, I think, in the early iterations of that. Getting to meet, by the way, as well, the early iteration of Fury roster as well, which consisted of Warden, Spruce, Rock, Golden. Like there were a few names, and after a short amount of time, obviously all the problems with the visa stuff came in, because me being Russian on a Russian passport in ANZ pretty much makes life absolute colossal hell when it comes down to any kind of travel internationally. So sorting out visa for each and every broadcast was pain, and so essentially I got dropped. So after that, it kind of a switch from being centered around ESL came about to freelance stuff, and so essentially fast forward to now, here we are. But this time, obviously, me and Blue collaborating and working together on many more broadcasts has actually helped developing mutual kind of skill in casting a whole lot more.
Yeah, that's why we work together. We're actually just killing time until we can get married, so he gets get citizenship. So it's the whole process.
It's all strategic.
So
Yeah.
you went the mail order Russian bride without having a mail order.
Look, if I'd known it was as easy as driving an hour to Auckland, hell yeah, I would have been right on that train. Unfortunately, it took me a while to figure out that he was there.
Yeah, because I guess really for you guys, so it kind of drives into, I guess, like the second question we've got for you guys in regards to, I guess, recent success for you guys as casters and analysts, of course. Because I do rate you guys a lot. I mention it a lot to Tony as well in regards to the effort you guys do put in behind the scenes for OCL specifically as well. I guess for you guys, as a duo, I guess what has prompted you guys to, I guess, have this, success domestically, I guess, in regards to your craft, in relation to Siege as of late?
Look, that's an interesting question. Yeah. I've always had an affinity for gaming. I think, and unfortunately, a lot of it does come. I'm ADHD. I've been diagnosed, 20 years almost now, and I've always just had an affinity for gaming. It's something that I've absolutely loved. Like some of my fondest memories, me and my younger brother sitting there with our Game Boys, all playing Pokemon together. Shout out you boys as well. I see you on the grind, Joe. Logging in every couple of hours just to get his levels up.
When I can.
Unfortunately, I can't play at the moment because my missus is currently playing Animal Crossing, so I've got these brief windows where I'm actually allowed to grind it out. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we'd all sit there, we'd game. I have memories with them. We played Halo when it came out, all three of us, Diablo. So I've always had this affinity for gaming, but unfortunately, I mean, I was always told, you need to find a proper career, you need to figure out what you do, and I've tried my hands at different things. I studied accounting at one point and psychology. None of it fit. And so I've sort of, finally figured out what the hell I want to do with my life. And shit, there's really not that much representation on the international stage from New Zealand, and that's probably what drives me the most. Is one, I love the craft. I absolutely love casting. I love gaming. I love esports, and I want to be able to represent New Zealand on an international stage and go as far as you possibly can, I suppose.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think on my end it was as well. Like obviously, representation definitely is a big one. Partially with New Zealand, but partially being able to if at some point I do make it onto the big stage and being able to rep New Zealand and Russia is like, fuck yeah, I'd do it. I'd roll with it. And the other part was like specifically in our case as a duo. From the get-go, like when I even started casting, like having a consistent other co-caster that you develop, like the chemistry, the memes, like even the inside jokes, it helps a ton. And with Blue as well, it kind of ended up working out borderline naturally because what was it? I think it was for Six Invitational Qualifiers or something across the lines was our first cast together.
No, bro, you're forgetting. So Nuttery, we've talked about to you guys, he's our go-to.
Oh yeah, sorry, AEL.
He used to run a tournament, the AEC Rainbow Six
AEC,
Minor League.
true.
So it was like a tier 3 competition, a $750 prize pool, and And that was literally my first Rainbow Six cast. I jumped in during the playoffs of one of their seasons, and they said, "Holy shit, you want to come back tomorrow for the grand finals? Let's get you in there." And I sort of just made myself a mainstay. And then the next season, we're coming up to playoffs. Another he messaged me. He's like, "Yo, I've got this guy I'm bringing in to cast with you for the playoffs." And I was like, "Oh yeah, cool. Who is it?" He's like, "Cthulhu ANZ." And I knew who Cthulhu was at that stage. Like that was a name that was well known in the community. I was like, shit. Okay, I'll see what I can do. And that was our first gig. It was a bit rough. We went on to the grand finals. That was a bit cleaner. And from there, we've just any time I've been able to pick a duo, it's been Cthulhu. Like I would not go anywhere else. He and I, honestly, we're about as close as best friends as you can get living in this online world in New Zealand. We hang out outside the game. We honestly, but after this, we're probably going to go play some Battlefield together because we hate our lives and we love getting shot at by, the OGs who just run around and crouch spam with SMGs. But honestly, yeah, I think it's been a trying release of a game. I don't know how I feel about it, but I keep going back to it. But it's one of those things, and you can see it with duos even around the world across esports. You can tell the duos that do have that close personal friendship outside of what they do, and those that just purely work together. And honestly, if I got offered 6 Invitational tomorrow and they asked me who I'd want, it would be Cthulhu. I would want no one else standing next to me in the casting desk.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. Especially like speaking from personal experience as well. Like even from events that I've had to do, like I straight up go for Tony or Matt normally because again those two. I think it's more so just like the chemistry you build together, not just as obviously business partners. Alongside that, you're also the friendships you make along the way, and I think realistically the banter that you guys also produce with orgs and players as a whole, that kind of brings it into as well. Because I know between you guys and me during OCL, obviously we have our fun.
Honestly, that is the biggest success of this entire stage, was baiting all the orgs into getting onto the timeline.
Listen. The idea was you guys just do that. We bait everyone else. As much as I hate to bash teams, it was the best time of my life. But
honestly, this stage, we talked about it, during broadcast, outside of broadcast. OCL Stage 3 has been the best one because we got everyone involved and it's just been shits and gigs the entire way.
Which is always good. But I guess talking about memories per se, I think proposing the question, I guess, for you guys, what has been, I guess, like the most memorable moment that you guys have had, I guess, more so either individually or as a duo recently? Like, that's the question I guess I proposed to you.
Yeah.
I think you go first this week, because you've got a few more memories than I do, unfortunately.
Yeah, look, there are quite a few memories. As a solo, I'd say the biggest memory that we had so far is, as a solo I had, was going to PAX Melbourne, because that was obviously casting in front of by far one of the biggest audiences that I've done so far, and it was the first time I got to try to feel in full how it is to gauge the hype from the crowd rather than trying to gauge it yourself, kind of in a much more unnatural way. And that was just like even outside of the broadcast, I was walking around the whole expo like a kid in a toy store. I was just, the smile never left my face. As a casting duo, I think one of the bigger highlights, I'd say, working with Red Bull for the Campus Clutch, specifically the broadcast when we did the national finals, and then when we got asked to come over for the Australia versus New Zealand whole showdown, because that was a whole different hype. And even then as well, we had they hosted like a watch party in a separate room, still inside the same office, but we could still hear the whole crowd. So we would, sometimes call out to the crowd, hear them cheer on, and then keep on rolling. And I think the last one would be the Rec GN close qualifiers, probably the most recent memory, being just the sheer amount of just us dicking around, and like we were kind of given like very not blurred, what's the word, very kind of very broad guidelines about like what not to do. Obviously not to like be racist and all of that, but apart from that, we got to shit on players as much as we could, albeit in polite and respectable way, and it was still kind of good fun, and we still had a really solid like production, because we also obviously had the Nuttery as well coming in to just do all the actual hard behind the scenes work, with him building even like the package, and even for the close calls, there may be some interesting new things coming up as well, as he's been building up some stuff. So, look, yeah, I think recent one, Reggian, the most like as a solo, PAX Melbourne 2018.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, like the bulk of my serious casting career has happened during COVID. So unfortunately, I mean, fortunately and unfortunately. So fortunately, the memories are quite specific ones. Like I can definitely highlight the ones that stand out. Unfortunately, there's just not a huge number of them. Like solo, there are two big ones that stand out in my mind. One, when I was casting Europe, I got to cover a player named Spoti, who I mean, like simple, but for Rainbow Six basically. He's turning 18. I think it's next year at some point. But the guy is literally savant at the game, and I got to cast one of his few appearances before he turned 18. And then obviously this year I got pulled in as a sub for APAC South as an analyst. That one is huge. I mean, that's the biggest audience I've ever had watching me on a broadcast. I think we cracked just under 25,000 or something during the show, and that was huge. I absolutely love that opportunity. But yeah, as a duo, Red Bull, those guys went above and beyond for us, and it was the most bizarre thing as well. So I actually won the year's supply of Red Bull from LPL Pro last year for Rainbow Six, and that's how I got it. And so what happened is Campus... I had no... before Campus Clutch, I had no intention of getting involved in Valorant. I hadn't watched high-level competitive. I didn't really think that much of it as an esport. But, so I got my monthly shipment of Red Bull. I made a tweet about it and said, thanks, shout out to Red Bull and Zed for hitting us with the shipment of Red Bull. And then I get this message, this email. You wouldn't happen to be interested in casting some Valorant, would you? And I looked at the email. It was Tiffany at redbull.co.nz. I was like, hold on. That's an interesting email to be getting. And so I was like, yeah, look, I could be keen. And they're like, cool, we've got this collegiate, Valorant competition coming up. We'd be keen to get you in and help. And I was like, you know what? You guys wouldn't happen to be looking for a duo, would you? Because I know a guy, and he'd be keen to jump in as well. And they're like, yeah, sure. Get us in touch with him. I was like, shit, Cthulhu, you keen to do some Valorant? He's like, yeah, cool. Send him through. And basically, so I skipped an entire week of OCL because they were like, we want you to come in for the qualifiers for this event. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, you're going to put me up in a hotel for 3 nights. You're going to pay me to do Valorant. Shit, yeah, I learnt the game as best I could in the time that I had. We rocked up. It was budget. It wasn't a huge setup. They literally got everything sorted in the space of a week. But it was one of the most fun experiences that I've had in casting. Is Cthulhu and I being in the same room, being able to cast this collegiate Valorant. Yeah, then it led on to the Nationals. It was a LAN. They had all the players there. We had a crowd, everything. They got like a proper production setup going. That was massive. And then we had big plans for the Australia versus New Zealand match. Like we were gonna play up the banter between Australia and New Zealand. We had a duo that we were gonna get from Australia, but just unfortunately because of lockdowns over there, they couldn't even get into the Red Bull office to make anything happen. So it was literally like, you know what? Yeah, cool. We'll get you in. You can cast the mainstream, and we'll just do a local thing, which sucked. But we had a hell of a lot of fun. We had the crowd there. We played up into the banter, and so that was a big one as a duo. And the other one that sticks in my mind is 6 invitational qualifiers last year, and it was a rough setup. It was brutal.
Oh yeah,
unfortunately, Cthulhu lives with his older brother, who tends to go to bed right in the peak of when we're doing our broadcast. So you might notice he'll go from hype, and then he'll just get a bit quieter here. It'll be ASMR Cthulhu with me bringing the hype, and we're just got to pump the volume levels up a bit because his brother's gone to bed. And so we got to do the open qualifiers. We had the whole setup, everything. And then we get to the end, and it's like, cool, that was so much fun, that's it. And we get this message, we've got these matches that we're keen for, the community to do for the closed qualifiers. And I was like, cool, yeah, sweet, I'll let everyone know, we'll see what happens. And so I send out the messages, the observer falls through, we have to get someone else in. And Cthulhu's like, I probably won't be able to do it because my brother will go to bed then, because we're obviously running off Singapore time. What we did is he went to his rural mate's place, like rural internet, took his setup, everything, and he's like, okay, the connection is bad. I will be alternating between my hotspot and the internet to try and make this. And we did this closed qualifier to tier 1, Asia Pacific teams. And Cthulhu was switching between the clean feed on his computer and his phone, running off his hotspot. And we absolutely knocked it out of the fucking park. It was huge. And so we get the other broadcast, like, I'm just going to go home now. I think this house is haunted. I can't be connected to the internet. And it was genuinely one of the best broadcasts that we've ever done. We're looking to do the same thing again this year. Hopefully that all comes together, but it's about dates at the moment. There's a couple of collisions we're hoping to sort out. But look, if last year was big, we're going even bigger this year.
That's awesome. That is awesome to hear, dude.
I don't know how that feels. I don't do it well, but I do it all.
I guess we can back off.
General
So I guess
sorry about that.
wrap, I guess go back into it. Obviously, you guys have mentioned a lot about the highlights. What does the future of Oceanic Esports look in terms of your eyes? What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? You know. Oh, there we go. It's the lighting.
On the couch.
Lighting
Sorry.
Secret screws
Tony's
going
head
on
is just
there.
like completely configured.
Oh boy.
I mean, look, this is something. So, I believe it or not, I discuss a lot of this with my dad, because my dad is an accountant. He's been an accountant my entire life, but it's for him. It's never really been about the numbers. It's been about developing, his clients' businesses and helping them sort of figure out the pathways for them to succeed. That's what he's more focused on. Is he wants to be able to sit down with the client and say, look, okay, here's what we've got right now. This is where we could be. What are your plans going ahead? And so I unfortunately find myself very much in the same sort of spot. I'm very, sort of like, where do we go from here? What's the next step? How can we achieve what we want to achieve? And so Dad also happened to be a member of Sport New Zealand. So he's helped me he's put me in contact with a couple of people, and I'm sort of putting those feelers out and trying to, sort of get the impressions of where the country's headed, because I want to be one of the figureheads, help the country develop. I want New Zealand to be running its own tournament. Screw you guys. You guys can go and do Australia shit. But
What do you mean? You got LPL. That's close enough.
This country's garbage, man. We got nothing. We got ESL, and even that's horrible.
I will opt not to comment on that. It's something that
Damn, we almost got him.
We all talk about it. It's sort of where are things going, and especially in Rainbow Six at the moment. This is something that we've identified. It's very top heavy. At the moment, there are literally two people that I could think of that might be able to step in and fill the roles that Cthulhu and I now currently fill. And we work with those guys, and we really like them. It's not that we don't like the other people in that spot. There's just literally no one there. There's literally like maybe 3-4 casters that I can think of in Rainbow Six operating below the where we are currently. So we've talked about potentially running events and helping introduce people into the back side of things, production, tournament adminning. So that's something that we are looking at as well. And honestly, as much as people say, Siege is dying, ANZ Esports is dying. No, we're actually, it's COVID. It fucking sucks, and everything is taken a back foot. But we are not dying. Slowly, we are coming back to where the norm was. And yes, it's going to take us a little while to get back to where things were before we were hit by COVID. But honestly, I reckon in the next couple of years, we've seen the Chiefs go to Sweden. We've seen NZ, represent. We've got fucking, you guys over at PGC, Furious repping the region. So we are slowly getting back to a position where OCE steps back into the mainstream, and we can actually start to get things done and start, developing APAC supremacy, as it were. So yeah, I'm genuinely. Next couple of years are going to be big. I think we're going to be. I know personally, Cthulhu and I have got our eyes on some things that we are looking to do. We know that Ubisoft has some things that they want to do over the next couple of years, without divulging too much, of course. But I think the next couple of years are going to be big in OS, and from there, honestly, I'm genuinely intrigued to see where it ends.
I mean, it all depends up on the player base as well. Like it's entirely revolves around the player base, and that's where I feel it is in a way at the moment dying, because a lot of them going, oh, I can't go to LAN, so why should I bother? And they just give up. And it's like, well, that's a bullshit reason.
Yeah, I think the other thing...
I think people also need to recognize as well, and this is a conversation that Cthulhu and Nuttary, our group, so we call ourselves the bottom cast crew. We talk about this sort of shit all the time. I think, honestly, and it's burnout. We've been stuck at home for the most part for the better part of 2 years. Constantly gaming, constantly playing. It is burnout. I literally took the entirety of last week off. I said, fuck Women's League. Those guys can cast it. I don't want to touch esports at all, because I knew I was that close to burnout that if I'd forced myself to do it on the broadcast or look at stats or anything, I would have been written off for the rest of the year. And I genuinely think the player base is there as well. Everyone's burnt out because we've been stuck at home. All we've been doing is playing the games that we play. And I think now that we're starting to hit those vaccination mandates and people can start going out and doing mainstream stuff, we'll take a break from what we've been stuck doing for the last 2 years, and we should come back stronger.
Should, hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
Should.
I think the big thing as well is not just OS anymore, right? Like it's APAC.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things that we have to mention because I know, at least in recent times, a lot of people complain about the lack of opportunities in OS. But it's just not OS anymore.
Well,
you know?
No,
Like,
it's
we
not.
kinda-
It's all over the world.
We've incorporated ourselves into more of the Asian region as well, so it's good to see. I guess, especially in Siege and PUBG, like they're the two primary targets, I guess, for this at the moment. Where obviously Siege has been incorporating themselves in with other domestic leagues locally, and even with PUBG competing with Vietnam, Thailand. Like it's a really good thing to see because it's going to open a lot more alleyways.
It's
for
also
us.
really good to see that the SEA now, like the SEA region, is also now interacting with the OCE region on a more like personal level. Like we see, like Brew, for example, Brewram, they're really like interacting with the Fury guys, and then you got AAP as well that are also interacting with other SEA regions and whatnot. That everyone's at least coming together, which is really cool to see, and it increases it. How should I word this? It makes the scene evolve to a higher level because now everyone's on a more friendly playing field that they're more happy to play in the same leagues as each other. Like if, for example, if one league when it started an SEA and OCE region tournament, they'll go, oh, that team I know is playing that I'm really good friends with. I'm just going to go play with them because they're playing.
Yeah.
And that's just how it's going to keep evolving. And I reckon hopefully in the next 5 years, OCE is actually going to be OCE. It's going to be SEA, Australia, and New Zealand all as one, playing in leagues together on a more often scale. Like
I mean, even in Siege, like they ended up, I think at the beginning of this year, the whole global circuit ended up splitting APAC. We've had before APAC North and then OCE. Now it's APAC North and APAC South. So APAC North involves what? Korea, Japan, and pretty much that's about it, I think. And then APAC South involves now SEA, South Asia, and OCE. Whereas, well, South Asia is still, it says it includes, but at the moment none of the South Asian teams were actually able to qualify for that circuit. So it's a continuous kind of battle between ANZ and SEA now on APAC South. We've seen in numerous events, like say even the yesterday's concluded one, Rec GN introduced two teams from SEA. That was the Direwolves and the Elevate roster against two ANZ teams. And yeah, in general, it's a good thing that there's now it's much less of a disparity like between the regions. But say even from the caster's perspective, like yes, there are now an abundance of those collaborations between regions, but you still look at the grassroots, you look at the tier 3 tier 2 stuff, there's still quite a big let's call it skill gap between say even the pay rates, like say which is again a very touchy subject in that regard, especially within ANZ again. Say for example, I don't know, your tier 2 tier 1 would probably, I don't know, pay like 200 if not 350 plus, and I'm more so like leaning towards tier 1, whereas your tier 3 you probably would be looking at like, I don't know, 10 or 20 bucks per match, and understandably so. Again, the scale of it is obviously much smaller than the usual, but it's the that breakthrough bracket, say from tier 3 to tier 2, which then would still quite borderline automatically lead you to that, like those breakthrough events or like pro-am circuits, which are, I think, in my personal opinion, are like very much lacking in ANZ. So yes, whilst we are top heavy, like Panda mentioned before, it's the fact that there's, I think, been one pro-am event, at least in Siege, within this whole year in ANZ, and it was fun. It was a banger, and it allowed so many teams to scout out for the new talent. It allowed the newer, even casting talent to be approached and to start developing, because they get a taste of what actually like good Siege is, and not just like ranked swinging or like every corner and not having any pug gameplay, like where you don't have any brain activity, and borderline after finishing the match you feel like you drop the IQ to like room temperature levels. And it's something that I would be very personally happy to do any behind the scenes, be as a person who would give pointers to the casters, all of that. Like I'm happy to be behind the scenes to assist with that, to actually help develop the talent, because without having any kind of competition, all of us would just be stuck sitting on our asses doing literally nothing, thinking, oh yeah, we still the hot shit, whereas meanwhile people would, with a much better potential, with a much better like initial casting skill, would be left literally out in the dirt.
Sorry, I just heard something in the background. I was like, what was going on? My roommates are doing something sus.
So yeah.
I definitely agree. Coming into the closet. Come on
Sussy.
through, boys. But yeah, I guess
Presenting the Bring
also
the Heat musical
to,
guest.
touch on that, spoke about the, what the future of OS looks, and from what you guys said, looks pretty promising, I guess, for R6 in general. And I guess, yeah, I like to talk with my hands, guys. Don't bully me, come on.
I respect that.
Look, yeah, I'm right there with you, Tony. I'm so glad OCL doesn't have caster cams, because I'm fucking, he's going for the swing. That's 1 kill, it's 2. Honestly, I could be an auctioneer at this point.
Where was that video of like an auctioneer in Texas or something, like going like speed running the whole auction?
But yeah,
like
so we talked a lot about the future of OS. I guess looking at the kind of past and how you guys came up, was there anyone that you guys kind of looked towards as like a mentor, as someone you aspire to be in this?
Personally for me, I think at the beginning it was obviously the international casters like Milosh, like Emzo. For some, well, with Milosh it was more so just about, it's another kind of person like that has been traveling internationally, so obviously English is not their straight away like main language. And Milosh being kind of one of the more multilingual casters within the scene, who also faced a whole lot of initial issues with the travel and all the visas, kind of echoed with me of far too close to home. And later down the line, I definitely would have to say some of the even like ANZ folk, like in the recent days, definitely Manic has been a big inspiration, given the fact just the man puts in the time and effort to obviously learn the game and not to sound like a colossal moron on the broadcast, while still having the charisma / creativity to be, the funny guy, the, still being able to bring the actual entertainment value to the stream, whilst also keeping up his both role as a PvP, as host, no matter what. Like, and that flexibility within him is something that I want to obviously learn, but me being a bit of a dense fucker in my head, it's a bit difficult sometimes, and including the language barrier. Same as something that as well that I've been like, even with Panda, I've been genuinely admiring, like the fact that the gamer can actually just out of the blue just start shit talking whilst not sounding offensive to the player. Well.
It depends on who you're talking to.
That depends on the player and the team.
We checked out last episode.
Minus more of the recent developments.
Joe, in terms of my tweet, all I said was that I'd explain why I said what I said. I never fucking said I'd apologize.
Yeah.
Listen, we said the exact same thing. The episode that's going up tonight, by the way, we did actually mention this, so you need to tune into that, because Tony and myself had a rant, like a fat rant about this.
Look, Cthulhu and I have talked about it, because we got hit, one of the OCL players 1 week, and he reached out to us and said, look, I was sorry, I had a bad day. It was unfair. And look, I love the guy. He's a phenomenal player. I reckon he's going to have a huge future from the scene, and he was mature enough to turn around and say, look, I was having a bad day. You guys didn't deserve that. The subsequent incident, however, we got messaged by the player who sort of made the initial one. It was a copy-paste message, by the way, where they literally just changed our 2 names. Did not interact with it. Unfollowed the team. I don't wish them any sort of, I don't wish anything ill against them, but if you're going to come at me with that sort of attitude after playing a piss poor game of Siege and try and blame us for your bad performance, I don't want anything to do with you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
no, you're 100% right there. I think that there's so many teams, and like, I mean, we've my work, I get to experience it on an international level where I meet like tier 1 orgs, and holy shit, like they are sour little girls sometimes. Like grown ass dudes crying over the smallest of things. And it's like, how are you this successful? Like, how have you developed your org get to this level, and yet you are who you are?
Yeah.
Like, it's nuts.
Honestly, the biggest thing, players need to remember, we don't do what we do for them. We do it for the fucking audience. We're entertainers. We're here to sell to the... If we literally catered to the players, esport would make absolutely no money. There'd be no viewership in it. It would be boring to watch. But our job, we are entertainers. That's why I do what I do. I talk a bit of shit. I honestly, it's one of those things that I've said from the very beginning. If I'm not enjoying myself in a broadcast...
Me on Legends.
Imagine a player 0-9. Guys, he's doing his best.
Yeah, look, okay.
No, he's shat the bed. Okay,
actually...
he is playing like dog. Yeah. He has shut the bed. He needs to go and have a lie down.
That's the thing, though. There's quite a contrast between the approach between myself and Panda. And Panda even mentioned that a few times as well, like whether it's behind the scenes, like about production, whether it's after we finished being live. Panda, like, he sends it full send. Like, unless he like genuinely didn't mean it, he like wouldn't even bother like saying, you know, sorry. And that's exactly what's been outlined. I, on the other hand, I've been raised to be a polite little boy. And so whenever, like, say, even in the context of, like, some of the more previous drama, including, like, a player where, like, you know, they had, like, pardon me, their whole team had a god-awful performance. And, like, you know, I've said it in a very mild way, but again, you know, me being the person who sometimes, like, would blurt out something in English that I would only later on understand, like, oh, shit, that was actually something bad. Sometimes I will, you know, fair enough. Like, if you got offended by what I said, sure, sorry, chances are I probably didn't mean it to sound offensive to you. But it's more so about the fact that, like, later down the line, like, literally 5 minutes after, like, the whole dispute was finished, like, in DMs, like, it just was taken professionally to DMs, like, everything's all good, we all fine, both sides are happy, and then the subtweet comes about, and like, okay, right, okay, I think my finger just slipped there on Twitter, and obviously the rest is history, but, yeah, like, where I would probably try to approach it, like, quote-unquote diplomatically, with Panda, it's just full send. You either full sending it or you don't. And that's something that, again, I wish I would have learned at some point through my life, but yet, at the moment, it's just, all habits die hard at the moment.
See, unfortunately, it's not learned. So, like I said, I'm ADHD. Like, I've lived with it my whole life. I'm quite comfortable. It doesn't worry me. It also makes me incredibly introspective. So I literally, to the point where it was 6 Invitational, we were in chat with the North American casters, and I made some comment, and, you know, nothing happened. But then still, like, 3 weeks later down the line, I was like, shit, I feel like I may have stepped over the line. I messaged him 3 weeks later. I was like, look, I'm sorry for what I said. I just hope I didn't upset you. He's like, dude, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. We're fine. And so even on broadcast, I'm introspective. Like, I don't want to be a dick. I don't want to be, you know, purposely attacking. I have never, in my history of working OCL, felt like I've stepped over that line. And then for players to turn around, the first one, yeah, he explained himself. I had a shit day. I was feeling bad. I just, you know,
Understandable,
it was unfortunate. He then went to the second half where we were literally gassing the shit out of them because they absolutely came back and stomped through the match. And he's like, yeah, sorry, it was just, you know, poor timing and a bad attitude on my part. But then this team, and they are the only team in the competition who has had an issue with what we've said. No one else. Every other player in the league, or at least representatives from the team, have said, we watched it, we didn't think there was anything wrong with it, don't feel bad. So even then, I comfortably say, we did nothing wrong. We did standard stuff. We honestly, no one was attacked. They just interpreted it that way because they played bad.
Yeah, and I hate it when players just, like, they'll attack anyone but themselves if they play like shit. And it's like, can you just own up and say, yeah, I had an off day?
Yeah.
And I guess, really, I guess to wrap up, I guess what we've discussed so far, I guess for you guys, just to finish on a light note before I guess we go
I realise
into...
I completely tangented out.
No, there's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that.
Tangents are our motto.
Tangents make it interesting. We're not here to just, you know, talk the basic stuff. We're here to have a discussion, of course. And I guess for you guys as well, I guess for those people who are still coming up in the industry and, you know, still trying to, I guess, get to a certain level, I guess for the both of you, do you have, I guess, any words or I guess any advice for those people who are starting to, I guess, break through into whether it is amateur casting, whether it's, you know, the semi-professional level at the moment?
Honestly, just main thing is, yeah, again, realizing that you can't allow yourself to be like, to have the ego, you know, to essentially say, yeah, I'm the best, they all don't deserve shit, and like I should be the one. So make sure that, like, stay humble, essentially. TLDR on that one. Stay humble and look, as much of the VOD review as possible, just try to outline, get like full on nitpicky. Like, do not let yourself like be, oh yeah, nah, like that's a small issue, like I'll overlook it, or like I'll look for something bigger. No, like get nitpicky, get hungry for it all, because if you're not nitpicky, you're not helping yourself. You're overlooking some of the stuff that to a standard viewer you would look a colossal moron for, keep on say, if you're using a single crutch word. So get nitpicky, get like start actually working around it. If not, like go full on like borderline. What if any of you watched the in the like a year or so ago, or maybe later, there's an interview with Samuel Jackson, when the man had the whole issue with stammering, stuttering, and all of that. His whole the word that got him out of that whole mental lock, motherfucker. That's now became his whole his whole brand at this point. So it's same thing here. Like, if you are having issues with, like, say, talking or just spelling something or whatever it is, just get down to basics. Literally, don't over screw yourself on that.
Well, there's also a method that I know race commentators do. They repeat the word that they're trying to say, or that they repeat the word before what they're trying to say. So if they're trying to say, like, horse number 7, and the last word they said was up, they will just keep saying up. They'll go up, and race number 7, and that's how they keep going on. And it keeps that hype and the energy going through, and in the end, you will work out, you're able to get that flow much more easier because you do it so often, instead of going or go silent or just start rambling for no reason. There's so many different methods out there, and that's something people can definitely look into.
Look, I saw this question. You know, you said the questions, and I did have a bit of a think about it, and there were sort of two main ones that I just sort of, you know, two main answers that definitely stood out to me that I was thinking about. Number one, if you can, know your worth, and that I understand you're coming up. That's something that can be a little bit hard to know your worth on a product, because tournament organizers have proved in the past they will try and screw you over. And it does sort of play into that ego and the confidence side of things. Know what you're worth. Don't let yourself get screwed over. And that might be going and asking someone else. This is a journey that I've been on, and I had that conversation with the tier 1 guys when I got up at APAC South, and because the guy messaged me, was like, so what's your rate? And I'm like, shit, I have no idea what the going day rate for a tier 1 analyst is. So I, you know, hit up my contacts and got that info from them. And the other one, and this is something that I've battled throughout 2021, is know the value of the product you are working on. If this is a prime opportunity that is being squandered, don't shut up about it. Honestly, I've said this time and time again. OCL would not have ended in the state that it was in if not for my constant badgering and saying, come on, we need to be doing better. Because there was a lot of stuff that was allowed to slip through. You know, I could spend an entire episode on this shit, but I'm not going to. But I mean, working in stage 1, it was not fun as a caster, and as soon as the stage ended, I said, you guys are bringing in Cthulhu for me to work with, otherwise I'm probably not coming back, because that, you know, the casting experience alone was dreadful. Cthulhu comes in, and, you know, next it was we want highlights, we want pre-match, you know, content pieces, we want map flyovers, we want interviews at the end, and it was, you know, because OCL feeds into OCN, feeds into APAC South. This is a direct pipeline to the pro dream. And that, you know, the product should represent that. And even, it might be a tier 3 competition you're working on, but if there are ways you can improve the quality, don't shut up about it. Say, look, is there any way we can do this? They turn around, they say no, that's fine. But if you don't ask for something, you're never going to get it. And unfortunately, there are those in the community who have been working on a product for a while and then it hasn't increased. And unfortunately, the quality of the product, even if you have absolutely nothing to do with the graphic design or any of that, if it looks bad, it is going to detract away from your value to prospective hirers, which is again something that I've harped on about. So know your worth, know the worth of the product. If you can increase it, because it will. Honestly, it's that saying, a rising tide will lift all ships. If we can do better at what we're doing, that can then feed into other projects. You can provide that expertise the next time you join a new tournament, blah, blah. And it's something that I've, toyed with, talking to producers, learning little things here and there that I might be able to, bring into other tournaments later on down the line. And it's honestly, I picked up the University League gig, which I believe you do as well for Counter-Strike, Tony. And when I first came in, they're like, cool, so here's everything you need. You're going to be doing everything. I was like, no, these are the 3 people that I'm bringing on. We've got a producer, an observer, and a co-caster because we want this product to be good. And now they've carried that on throughout this year. And I think they're the only competition that has a dedicated producer and observer working on it. And it's because I said, if you want a good product, you are going to want these things. And AL said, okay, sure, we'll give it a go. And they've kept it going. So if it's good, it'll work out, basically.
100%. 100%.
You're not wrong. And I guess that's a nice way to cap that one off as well. It's definitely been a good discussion, I guess, regarding, your status in the industry and I guess some advice to other people. But this is called Bring the Heat, of course. So we have got our normal topics available. One of them more R6 orientated, another one a little bit newer, which I'm actually excited for. But we are going to be starting things off, obviously, going into the OCL OCN relegation discussion. Now, Cthulhu, we had a very minor discussion yesterday in a voice call, of course, about the status, I guess, of the teams who are competing in it. Now, if we're putting pen to paper here, fellas, now you guys are going to know a lot more than I do because I am biased for one of the teams and I hate the other 2 orgs personally. But you guys, what do you think is going to happen here? Because I know relegations just seem a little bit off at the moment with the teams that are competing.
Look, again, I want to be candid. And say exactly what's on my mind, but I think we enter that territory where people can get upset and certain positions then potentially get jeopardized. Look, I'll be honest, OCL Relegations left a bit of a bitter taste in the mouth. Not overly impressed with certain individuals that have then gone into it and then gone out of it and then gone back into it again. Again, without naming names, but I think the other 3 teams involved, I'm excited for what they're bringing to the table. Obviously, Wildcard, Fury, Overt, I reckon they're going to make some good matches. Wildcard, ironically, going to live up to their name a little bit because we're not quite sure where they stand as of the moment. But I'm definitely keen for Fury, definitely keen for Overt, and I'll let Cthulhu talk a bit, and then I can jump back in with the big guns.
Look, it is going to be an interesting tournament. I'll say that. Regardless of who would have qualified for it, if not for a team dropping out and whatnot, all the ifs and whats could have introduced a whole different question. But I'll say that I definitely still think that out of the trio that is going to be Overt, Wildcard, and Fury, those are the 3 that are actually in full-blown contention for qualifying for OCN. Because as much as, we've seen big dogs, develop themselves, as much as they were putting in the effort, as much as we've seen them, get to the 3rd place matchup, they have gunners. Yes, cool. But only having gunners and then some resemblance of strategy and some resemblance of coordination, that's only going to get you as far as just to, top 3 in OCL. OCN, pardon my language, will shit on you and then some. And so for teams like Fury, who's been already developing themselves, two times in a row winning OCL, that's already showing consistency. Even despite some of the roster changes, again, consistency. All looking very promising. Again, it's still going to be a very uphill battle, and I won't exclude it in any shape or form, whether it's the Fury lads playing against Wildcard or whether it's against Overt, because Overt shown if essentially they weren't introduced to OCN for the fact that they got in only in Stage 3, and if they were, say, back in Stage 1 or Stage 2, they would not be in relegations. Because, pardon me, they shat on half of the competition throughout OCN. Wildcard, again, if they pull their shit together, they can do it, and it will be still a very rough run for them, because whilst, yes, they have the whole legacy behind them, they have the whole, they've played in APAC South and OCN. OCL may prove the fact that it's going to be difficult for them to adjust to all those teams, because it's in a similar way of how, I don't know, say, call it a diamond playing in against like golds or silvers. Because in diamond lobbies, you would know exactly who, what, and where is going to be. It's more so going to be about who's going to be swinging harder at you. In gold and silver, you pretty much playing full well knowing that there's going to be barely any strats, or probably the strats copied off a YouTuber. Or you're going to have literal apes swinging about and without, again, no logical approach to it. And so trying to figure out that logic and strategy versus the sheer amount of chaos is what's going to be the difficulty for Wildcard. And so, end prediction, I want to say overt Fury, but at the same time, I'm not excluding the fact that it is going to be, that one of those spots is going to be taken by Wildcard and them returning back to OCN, because it's going to be, because we've seen a whole lot of teams that were down bad horrendous during OCN, went into relegation, absolutely shitstomped their opposition from like all the previous or like open qualifiers, whatever the other competition was, and then returned back to OCN, because the skill gap is still quite tremendous between the two competitions. That's my opinion.
Yeah, look, and I'll say this knowing full well that this is your org. I think Fury in their current state are actually better equipped to handle playing up for that promotion spot into OCN than the Fury Stage 2 roster were. As much as, the smash and grab style of approach that they had with Kaken and Pun on the roster, I don't think that is a play style that will find an overwhelming amount of success. OCN is a very structured competition. They know how to do, especially when you get like the top tier teams, Knights, Chiefs, they know how to handle that aggression. So now that we see, Fury, they've gone through that restructure. They brought in Brendo and Deptra. They're sort of where Overt were last stage, and that they've transitioned into a more structured team. They can play off of each other. They can handle themselves in those very, very tense moments. So I think, personally, I think it is going to be Overt and Fury to make it through. Wildcard, honestly, I don't know where their mental's going to be coming. They're facing 2 relegations tournaments, which is not a situation that you want to be in any competition. And I think Order were lucky to have escaped that. But, until we get to the event, obviously, this coming weekend, we're not going to know where Wildcard are going into it mentally. Fury, they're looking good. Obviously, back-to-back champions. You take that, but it's not just that. They've looked good when it comes to the server itself. They've ironed out a lot of those kinks that they've been having. And then that leaves big dogs. And I'll be honest, any team that finishes third across 3 stages in a year, and then the disband tweets and the LFT tweets come out, that's shocking. I'm sorry. That's 3 podium finishes, and you're like, we didn't crack into the grand finals. Fuck all the work that we've been doing now. Fuck the coach that's been... Honestly, I have a huge amount of respect for Spectron, the coach for the Big Dogs, who is stuck with the team and been a driving force throughout I have a huge amount of respect for Shaq, who has been there as well throughout. He's... Whatever people say about him, he is dedicated. He wants to make it as a professional, and he is a hard worker. And then... obviously King Rules as well, another stand-up player. So those 3, and probably Boff as well, who's also been there in the background. Yeah. But you've got these 2 newest players in this competition. You finish third, one of them immediately goes looking for team. And that you've qualified for promos, you qualified for the finals. That is so fucked. I'm sorry, there is no other way to describe it. All that hard work that every other person that played through that roster has put in throughout the year, and you're like, nah, it's not good enough. I've played 1 season, but fuck you guys. So I do want those individual elements of the Big Dogs to succeed, but if I'm being perfectly honest, I kind of want to see the Big Dogs as a whole die. I want to see them step away from the name. It has not been a healthy name in the competition, and this latest incident has not helped. Like I said, if they rebranded, if they found themselves a couple of players that could fill that role, I wish them all the success. But the Big Dogs' legacy has not been a great one.
I mean, it's kind of the amateur ideal of, we didn't get where we wanted, so we're just going to quit. And I was like, well, hang on, you got so close, and you've been playing for how long? and now you're just gonna up and leave? Like,
Well, it's not even that they're close. They've got their foot in the fucking door. They're literally playing Promo's tournament.
yeah.
And you didn't manage grand final in the third stage, which didn't even matter for you in the end. Yeah, you didn't quite get the biggest chunk of the prize money, but
Like, I reckon,
your hard work
like,
started at that
literally, if they
point.
stayed together and they kept playing through next year, they would be the contenders. They would be probably number one. That's how good they are. And
yes, yes and no. I think certain individuals in that roster were problematic in their attitudes, and there's certain.
but
histories in the
attitudes can
competitive
change,
scene.
nonetheless. And that's as a coach and as as captains are, their jobs are to manage and develop those attitudes and those those personalities into a more professional scene. And I reckon, if they stayed and they kept working on those things, then they would be contenders.
I think,
But unfortunately, they have decided they don't.
Yeah.
I think realistically for me as well, as an org that's competing in it, and as someone who likes to have, I guess, ongoing relationships with teams and orgs, especially with us, how we had to make those changes to actually, with K-King going to Rufflecopter and obviously with Pun stepping down to a substitute position, it has been a very, very weird year. But I think overall for me personally, like, I just want, like, if my team qualifies for OCN, sick, happy with that. I want a team that's going to come with us that I can actually have banter with. Because right now, if I had to pick out of Overt and Wildcard as to who I'd prefer to have banter with, they're both fucking useless, if I'm going to be honest.
Oh,
Like, I'm just going to say it.
well, neither of them tweet.
Listen,
Yeah,
you guys know
look,
up front how much
unfortunately,
I gave
we-
Overt shit last stage for the
Yes.
absolute lack of disrespect they put on that roster because of how little they, produced anything for that team.
Yeah, like I said, unfortunately, if we had another stage, maybe we could have got them in a position
Exactly.
where they were openly shit talking on the timeline, but they fucked off to OCN. So
That's the thing. And even, I guess, in a weird world, what if Wildcard stays in APAC South, but they play OCL at the same time? Like,
again, another discussion that we've had, and there's certain stuff that I'm sure we can't talk about, but there's been talks about levels of competition that teams have to commit to if they're in a tier
Yeah.
one. So maybe they do. They fuck around at OCL. They look to get a bit of prize money along the way. They don't take it too seriously, or they just say, no, it's not worth our time. We want to invest everything in APAC South. So, I mean, honestly, there's a number of different possibilities, but honestly, my biggest question has to be, especially coming to this event, where are they mentally in terms of the players themselves? And realistically, what are the odds that they do stick together throughout the close of 2021?
yeah, and I think the other thing as well that I've seen pop up, obviously it's coming towards the end of the year, and we're not going to see too much up until next year again. What changes do you think are going to get made in the off season? Because at least from discussions that I've had with a couple of people, Order as well did not have a very good performance, respectively in OCN and APAC South. There has been talks as well as some of the Overt members actually going to Order, potentially to fill a couple of those roles, which realistically I think could happen. I think, especially for Order, they were in a very similar position to how Wildcard was originally.
I definitely think that.
Yeah, I'll let Cthulhu take this.
Yeah,
first.
I definitely think that the off season is going to be huge in between the 2 years. Like the whole span of December, January, and February, as a matter of fact, including probably the time post SI calls, because last time SI calls were a very interesting timeline in its own entirety. But yeah, look, for Order, they definitely had a bit of a rough one, and I think the best case scenario for them obviously would be to use that whole 3-core rule. Put 2 of their current players. I'm not even too sure who to even put on the side of Order on the bench, or rather move them to subs or coaches, however you want it, and then bring in some of the new fresh talent as maybe just flat out fraggers. Because Order are by no means a dumb team. Like, they have the theory, it seems like they can't nail the actual practice. Same goes for...
Like, on paper, they should be one of
Yeah.
the top 4 teams in APAC.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like, even from previous results, when Order picked up that team originally,
Yeah.
when they were on Akami, right? Like, they were a really good team.
They were a really
And
good team.
since that point, they've shit the bed, which
Yeah.
I really don't know what's going on over there.
I mean, would it be the players or would it be the org?
Listen, if we're going to talk about the org, I have personal thoughts about Order, and I don't really want to touch on it here.
Yeah.
No, I think it is.
I think it's just genuine
just-
burnout.
Yeah.
A combination of burnout, the things just haven't worked the way they'd wanted to. Like I said, on paper, they should be one of the top 4 teams in APAC South. I mean, you look at Nate, one of the best gunners in the competition, stepped into the main roster. I think probably one of the biggest losses they had was Itby Style stepping away, because I mean he did bring a certain amount of level-headedness to the competition.
Yeah.
He was a voice of reason in a lot of those situations. But unfortunately, yeah. I mean, look, I say unfortunately, he picked his real job over Siege, which in the region and the current stage with Rainbow Six, it's understandable, and I wholeheartedly respect him for that. I love the guy. He's such a great person in the scene.
Yeah.
But I think, unfortunately, yeah, his stepping away from core was more damaging than anyone in the community realized.
I mean, it's the same stuff with with Wildcard. You look at Wildcard at the beginning of the year, prior to them losing Ethan and Diesel, top of the line team. Because Diesel was that level-headed person, like he was the IGL, at least in my memory, who was like the one leading the charge, or at least he would be the one to calm down the team. Ethan was just a cracked gunner, and as well as that, had again brains, like to actually make the right decisions. Both of them leave. Mental on the wildcard side is chalked. Stage 1, they have to play with Silex, who by then barely had really time to prep and practice the gun skill, so there's already quite a shuffle. And it's just that colossal continuous kind of kerfuffle of them trying to find their stride whilst also needing to prep for both of the competitions, both APAC South and OCN, is I think what just completely chalked the mental. So coming into all of this, if they get relegated to OCL, yeah, that's a disband. They just make a whole new team. The legacy of Wildcard, back then known as August, back then known as Atletico, and we could go down a very deep rabbit hole. That whole legacy is dead, and just let the team die. Remake, bring in a few of the players. Maybe some of the players join a few of the OCL teams and just regrind it from the very beginning. If they do make it back, yeah, look, use that 3-core rule, bring in just fresh new names, whether it's for IGLing, whether it's for supporting, if they're all comfortable with fragging, and that's something that is going to be probably shown and proven during the promotion relegation tournament, and just work your way from there on. Because Wildcard still have, again, same boat as Order. They have the potential, they have the chances. It's just at the moment, it's even more so unproven, because their skeleton in form of Diesel and Ethan not fell through, but is gone, and they haven't been able to stay on just muscles throughout this whole year, and it shows.
Mm-hmm. And it probably doesn't help that Ethan has then gone on to join the Chiefs, who have made it to the main.
Ethan joins Chiefs, and the man is just even more so cracked. And the whole thing with Ethan, when he first left, it was genuinely about his concern for his physical health. He, took a break, got back into the form. You look at him now, the man is just absolutely cracked on the sticks, on the MNK, however you want to call it, and he's just absolutely gaming. So, say...
Not as good as Worthy.
Oh, obviously,
so
yes.
could it be that his old
he's in
team was affecting his physical health, or...?
It could be, no. It's just the sheer amount of grind. That just general kind of siege comp prep, and the sheer amount of time that needs to be dedicated on a high-end level, at least in the current state. I think that's what's been taken away. And it's just it eats up... Borderline becomes your full-time job without the benefits of a full-time job. Where
and I think that's a lot of people in the community don't realize the difference between only having to prep for one competition a week to having to prep for both OCN and APAC South. I mean, you have to double the level of work you're doing while also showing this twice as much of yourself on a game day. So
for the same amount of money
as
well.
I know a lot of players,
for the majority of it.
So I know a lot of players were hesitant to go OCN and APAC South in the same week, and a lot of players have talked about, and there's discussions going on. And doubling back to what you were talking about, Joe, overt players leaving to fill Order, I think that would be a horrendous fucking mistake. Overt in their current form are looking good, and that is only after one stage in the OCN where no one expected them to do anything. They cracked top 4 as well, and that is not something that you would see many teams do in a competition like that. So in
the first appearance as well.
Exactly, and we talked about it with Kaken and Pun leaving you guys last stage, and then going to Kaken going to Rafflecopter and Pun stepping away. And now that I've seen what you guys look like at the end of Stage 3, not the worst decision. But at the time, Kaken being allowed, I think if we hadn't seen you guys have the run you had in Stage 3, I think that would have been probably the biggest mistake of Kaken's career, was leaving you guys at that stage, because Stage 2 Fury was scary. Yes, they played off their aggression, and yes, it worked, and it may not have been the case at OCN, but they still could have done some real damage going into the OCN next year. Unfortunately, now you've got Deptra and Brendo who are looking lethal. Let's be honest. The boys at their current stage are looking like they could be top contenders going.
Despite the shit that we
they're
do.
looking more comfortable than other teams I've seen them play in. Like they feel like they're
100%.
at home.
It did take them, the first sort of 4 or 5 weeks of play. But, I mean, you look at them in that grand finals.
Yeah.
And we had questions about Brendo. He didn't feel like he quite fit. But the last 2 weeks of the regular season and the playoffs, holy shit, you would have thought that guy had been playing with them since the beginning of the year. He
The
knew his
synergy
job, he
has
did it
really
well.
come together nicely.
Oh, exactly. And then you've got Quiz, who, the second longest running member of that team, which people do also forget. He was there from Stage 1 playoffs. The only other player who had been longer was President. And, I mean, I haven't done the stats. I'm getting into that tomorrow. But I'm pretty sure he's going to take the top kill spot away from Tuhan after last stage. And at this stage, he's probably my front runner for MVP of the overall thing, because the guy had a ripper of a Stage 3. And you look at Overt, they are in a similar position. They, at the moment, they had a couple of struggles early on in OCN. They found their experience. They found their rhythm. I think for them to lose players to Order would be just horrendous, because that team, as they said, forget the org. It doesn't really matter about the org. It's about the players. The 5 unit that you have in Overt currently are a team that I could easily see qualifying for APAC South at, towards the tail end of next year.
Oh, 100%.
I think the rather interesting thing for me as well, I guess, on the topic of Order, is like Order as an org just have so much money to burn. And the other thing as well at the moment is, I guess the tricky question for me at the moment is, if Order want to make the changes right, and I'd probably agree with you, it'd be a shit thing if Overt did have players go to Order as an example. Do you think money would talk over, I guess more so the logic that we have? Because we have seen a lot of situations like that.
Yeah,
and if you're going to Order, right, I'm probably the only one here who knows a lot about them, but like the income stream that they have is just fucking absurd. Like
they got 7 figures coming in.
It's insane. But like just looking, I guess, for the future as well, I guess even for us as well, like even after Stage 1 we made changes, Stage 2 we made changes. I had to put a lot of faith in Prez over that. Like Prez has been the one that's been driving that team since day one, and I could kiss that man at this point.
I mean,
fucking hell.
He is the team.
One of the hardest
He is the hardest
in the
working
competition.
individual I've ever had the pleasure of working with, excluding the PUBG guys. Like his mental game, like it's just fucking miles above everyone else that I've worked with. It's insane.
Oh look, and he's no slouch when it comes to talking shit as well.
Listen, in all
he picked it up
fairness,
from Joe.
our logic here, someone's got to be the villain, right? We don't give a shit. Like if he talks shit and he backs it up, I'm cool with that. If he fucks it up, then we have something to meme on. So
I mean, like that's the whole reason we started doing those pre-match interviews for OCL, is we wanted to get the banner flag. We wanted to get people, the players used to having to do that sort of thing, especially if you're looking to promote into the OCN and above. You're going to have to be doing interviews. You're going to have to be talking to people. And honestly, there are only, I would say there are probably no interviews that we did throughout the stage that we regret doing. Some that did not age well, but there are some that, the rest of them, 100%. But, I mean, unfortunately, it's the nature of the competition at ANZ. We've seen this so many times. It's that, oh, shit, there's an opportunity. I'm going to take that because it bumps me up a level. When in reality, if you sit down and think about it, actually, the team that I'm on right now, the synergy is very, very good. We work together. We trust each other. We are getting the results. The team that I'm looking to jump into, they've been sporadic. They haven't had the greatest history. They've had quite a high turnover.
But so many players will just chase the bag.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that with Kaken, but I can respect it with Kaken. It wasn't the worst showing for the stage. I think he was far from the issue on that roster. There were probably other issues that came into it. But he himself, he deserves to be tier 1. Honestly, I want to see Kaken at some point playing APAC South next year. I think teams would be stupid not to pick him up. But it's that situation where, honestly, if he had stuck with you guys going into promotions, he probably would be having a better time of it.
I'll definitely say that, the ye old kind of phrase of money talks, bullshit walks will be very much applicable to just the whole kind of approach even nowadays. Like, I mean, you even look back like yonks ago, like when Virtue was part of the VSDS, then moved over to Fnatic. Okay, that whole move kind of made sense because it was still within the region. But then Virtue's moved to G2. Arguably, you're now looking, yes, G2 brings in a butt ton of money. Yes, he gets to go international. Yes, he is technically presented with the opportunity to go to other teams again within EU, and EU being arguably being the better region, at least in the form of like development or
Well, at least what we've seen
self-sustainability.
so far, Latin America is just
Well,
shit on everyone. So
Yeah, technically now the next move is just come to Brazil, as finally all the fans do say. But you look at the current situation of G2 for Siege. Genuinely, like, I can name probably more in the recent days, more times that they shut the bed than them actually acquiring the bag. And not to say that the whole roster is shit and that G2 is shit, but like for Virtue, he got the worst end of the stick than him, like say, comparative between him moving from VSDS, which by the way is nearly the same roster as now what Order has, minus Virtue, and him moving to Fnatic. That was a perfect fucking move. Like, genuinely, the man brought in some extra good pushing power to Fnatic. But in saying that, his next move was, like, it's like one of those memes, like, my move was calculated, but man am I bad in maths. Because at least from the outside perspective, it was like, you couldn't find a worst case scenario for the gamer. Because yes, while the money is here, while the publicity is there, and you have international now presence, your team is shitting the bed on the regular, and that's not even due to the laxatives.
Yeah, speaking of, I'm genuinely concerned if I ever do make it to a major and G2 is there, because I think I might be on their radar. Because they had what was the PGL, and Carlos, the man in charge of D2, posted, "Oh, sorry, I can't hear you from up here," when they finished third or something. And he's standing next to the trophy. And I commented under it and said, "Sorry, where is your team staying in Sweden for the major again?" And he liked that. Unfortunately, so if I ever make it to a major at the same time as G2, I might have to watch my back.
Shit. But, well, because we've been speaking a lot about R6, and I guess we kind of want to transition on to our next core topic. An org, a game that has your back, Halo, coming in big with the competitive season here for 2022. Of course, the launch of Halo Infinite being I feel a massive success, especially on a grand perspective, not just OS, but of course, bringing out this region, bringing all these tournaments and a timeline here. Straight away, showing people that Halo care as a TO.
Yeah.
It depends on who you ask. I know there was a number of people blocked from the NA side of esports in terms of talking about past successes and failures. So, honestly, pretty stoked with the release. And I can safely say Cthulhu and I are both running for that bag, gentlemen. So you better watch yourselves.
I got a team. I want a team. I don't want to cast a game. All right. I've already seen teams being formed. I've seen Direwolves get in. I think Chiefs are also wanting to get in, which is going to be sick.
And potentially mine.
There is that many orgs who
Kanga?
want to get into this
I've
shit.
heard-
I am physically having to beat the shit
I
out
heard
of
from
people to
person
get
that
to the end
Kanga
of this
might want to
run.
get involved as well. He's like, alright.
Yeah, listen. Kang-
Who was it? Someone
keep
posted
your
like
eye
some
out in the
skin
next couple of
concepts,
days.
and the
Kanga's got
Fury
some
one
shit
looked
on
pretty
board. Yeah, I think
clean.
that was
I'm going to be
actually.
honest.
I mean, it's also well and good that Halo has also come out with this roadmap.
Hallelujah.
It's great to see that they've gone, hey, we have a plan, we want to do this. Now, we all know how Australian TOs are.
They're garbage.
Yes.
Let's be honest. We know how there's a lot of people in the scene who need to
look.
leave the scene because they are utterly
Let's be honest,
useless.
there are varying levels of garbage in the scene.
So I'm very excited to see how the Halo get the representatives that will carry on and make these leagues the best possible leagues as they are. Like, Halo have had a rep of making some amazing competitions, in the past. So I'd love to see how they go and how the roadmap actually does play out, because I've seen TOs. I'll name Apex, where they came out with their first initial worlds. I don't know how many years ago. What, three something years ago?
because it was
Something like
2019
that.
Apex release.
And that was an absolute just bombshell of a thing where they just started banning players for no reason. So I would like to see how Halo take this in how they actually start it and how many actual teams and players actually enter the pro scene itself.
Yeah, I think even in recent days, just seeing, I guess, what's happened so far, like there's been Overwatch, CS, Valorant players again making a shift to Halo because again,
maybe all three at
if
once.
you shit in one scene, let's go.
Maybe
to
all
another and see how
all
we
three
go.
at once, Joe.
Yeah, maybe all three at once.
I'm Plat 1. You should pay me $400 a month.
I mean, it is actually it's healthy if you actually sit down and think about it. For like the OG, like the Valorant scene, the CS scene, the Rainbow Six scene. It's like, well, it cuts out those players that aren't dedicated.
Yes.
And the ones that are, of course, they're going to stick with it, and yeah, they might play a bit of Halo. But if you have gone in the last sort of 18 to 20 months from Counter-Strike to Valorant and now to Halo, something is wrong, and it's not the game.
Yeah, but like they don't look at that. Like look at the amount of Fortnite people that went to Valorant, and they're playing like absolute shit, and they're like, oh, but I was so good on Fortnite. And I was like, no, you really weren't. And then they've gone and played something else, and they go, oh, look, I can get 10 kills a game. Yeah, but you're dying 15 times. Like, you're not that good, bro. I'm sorry.
I think the cool thing, I guess, regarding Halo, they've got a lot of the veterans back in for the casters as well.
Yes.
I think one of the tricky things for me personally, seeing, I guess, Josh Inman being like, I'm more the general manager for ESL and also casting, so it's going to be interesting to see how he balances that out as well. But I think seeing a lot of the older folks come back, like these guys, like mid-30s, like late 40s, all coming back.
They're
to
the
scene.
OGs of
like they're all
of
the
Halo,
OGs.
yeah.
Like even like some of the players, like these guys have like. It's actually insane to see how their like following is. They have like 300 followers on Twitter and they get like 900 likes a tweet. Like it's absolutely just cooked off their tits.
Well, there's a player here in Adelaide actually. There's a player here in Adelaide who used to play like the Worlds, back when like the old Halo, and even he's like said, "Hey, I want to get into playing again," and he's 35, something like that.
2 or 3 of the Direwolves team in New Zealand.
Yeah, they're all Kiwis. That's why
have competed
Direwolves
at
one
a-
of them,
at a high
because
level.
2 of them are in Auckland, and that's where the Direwolves HQ is kind of just set up over there. So fair enough. I think like it's going to be healthier, I guess, for the orgs as well. Come to think of it, because I mean, if the orgs get in the right sections, and please don't fucking fluctuate the salaries.
I mean,
it's
new
gonna be
game, new hype. It's
Well, it's also they've shown that they are willing to help out the orgs. I mean, you look at the team. I don't know the percentage of what the teams are getting for the team skins, but
That's
they
just
announced
clean.
that on release.
Yeah, that is clean.
And you get that in Siege. We have the Siege skins, which again there's a certain percentage that go to the teams. But to have that on release and show that is something that they are dedicated to doing, they want to see longevity come to Halo and Halo.
well, they know how much money can go into it.
Yeah.
They've done it in the past, and they will do it again, and that's where.
Yeah, and it's the fact that it's the free to play as well. For free to
Yes.
play multiplayer, whilst you also have a healthy from the get go esports program. Like those two things for me was like holy shit. Like that's something like they already targeting their main market. They know for a fact that all the oldies will be coming back. No, well, there's gonna be a percentage that would give a fuck about the story, and again, it's admirable and all good, and it's always good to have like a single player campaign, but a lot of people will be coming back with the memories from the multiplayer, the teabagging, whatever it is, like how it was like back with like ye old Xbox some MW2, and there's already I actually had, I think Deltero DM me something of a picture saying like, I'm starting to finally feel the generation divide, as there's a post on Reddit saying, why do people run up and twerk over me when I die at Halo Infinite?
Yeah, I've never felt older in my casting career than seeing that post.
Genuine
Jesus,
pain.
like,
Yeah, that is pain. Do you money?
Yeah, honestly, we've had him for about 2 weeks now. I think it might be time to let him go. But I think the other cool thing as well, not only just a general map for across the entire year, Australia has 2 key events.
Yes.
Right? Like we've actually got kind of like not the major, but more so like it's not a qualifier either. It's like
it's a minor. It's
a minor, which is going to be in Melbourne, which is actually
It's
interesting
still
because that's going to
yeah.
be at MEO. Now, the thing is with MEO, right, since PAX and MEO kind of got mushed together and then cancelled, this next Melbourne Esports Open event that's going to be in next year, right, is going to have...
We hope.
Well, fingers crossed it will, yeah. It's going to have Halo as the minor. It's going to have a CS minor. It's going to have potentially another Siege event. It's going to have FGC. Like...
It's gonna be It's gonna be a week long. It's gonna be a week long event.
Slap. Like it's gonna be so good if it doesn't.
Look
go
at my
ahead.
ticket now.
Like it's yeah, straight up.
Fuck, I'm so ready to be running between the Halo and Rainbow Six stages. I'll fucking do it.
Just run between
book
them.
yourself in early.
I'll
Just throw
I'll
the
finally
round.
be able to get my
They're
stall,
waiting
and
for
we'll
me.
do the we'll do Beef Be Gone. I'm not sure if you guys know. So I had an idea of Beef Be Gone, which is basically I'll get like a stall and I'll get sumo suits,
Right.
and then anyone that wants to, you know, who has beef in the scene can come in. They pay me $5 and they go slam it out.
Hey,
Oh, you can make a mint off the Siege community.
yeah,
Holy
that's
shit.
$100 million
It'd be such a great idea.
That
I
is
think
a
it'd be
$1
awesome.
idea.
Catch me in there round one, honestly. Who wants to throw hands?
Can't wait
No,
to
no.
see
So
it.
yeah, you have like the the generic crowd one, and then you get like all the orgoners in, so you can actually crown who's the best org.
If I'm gonna be
Yeah, that is like that, and all the money that I'd be getting, I'd put it back in like I'll put it on a big event, like I'll put it on a tab or something at a bar where everyone can meet up.
That just wouldn't be fair,
all
though.
all the orgoners come and beat the
Panda,
shit out
that
of each
wouldn't
other.
be
and then you
fair.
go
Like
get
if I had
them
to go
drunk.
against a Bayo from over, the kid's like 5'6". I could use him as a javelin. Like honestly, like
I am a firm believer in Darwinism, and some people don't make the cut.
I mean, there's quite a few people that I'd like to go toe to toe with. But moving on, keep going with the Halo. So, how do we feel with the MEO and whatnot? Do we feel that it's going to be a highly successful with the amount of teams that are going to go in, or are we going to probably see maybe 5 teams are going to be the primaries, and then just a bunch of amateurs going absolutely nowhere?
I think the second, honestly.
we've got a
hopefully.
year up until it happens.
I
though,
think the
really.
second
It's
after
like-
what I watched, because I watched a few of the POVs from the
yeah.
qualifiers.
Oh,
Yeah, I think the second. I think Lunchy's team's absolutely gonna decimate everyone. From what I heard, the comps, the comms, everything was just on point. Yeah, I think it's just gonna be 1, 2, 3 teams up that top, and then everyone else just thankful to be
It's
there.
literally just going to be the
And
vets against
actually,
the
that would-
younglings.
Touching on that,
straight
Yeah, I'll
up.
let Blue
I
go.
think speaking of Halo and all the success, I think Splitgate have shit the bed.
True.
Without including any sort of ANZ events. They're like, yeah, we've got this, monthly tournament that you can do, but esports is not coming anytime soon. Then Halo comes in, and I can only imagine just how, pissed off the people at Splitgate are like, why the fuck did we not jump in there
Yeah.
sooner?
No, I think it's also
I don't know why Splitgate did it. Yeah.
I genuinely feel as well they can't be. This may sound weird. There's way too many esports right now in OS where there's
Yes.
not a scene that can develop.
No, you want to know? So I jumped in the Splitgate Discord because I saw they announced the ANZ. I was like, cool. Who do I talk to about joining a casting team for Splitgate and ANZ? And the message I got back was there are no plans for broadcast for ANZ tournaments in the near future.
Love that.
So
don't give
we're
a
going to
shit.
have tournaments, but we're not going to let people watch said tournaments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just don't give a shit. It's ANZ. Actually for them it's probably just the A. They
Ladies
wouldn't
and
even know if
gentlemen,
New
we've
Zealand
got
actually
Riot
exists.
2.0.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
We're back again.
they're just going to straight out fail. If their idea is we don't care about a region, I can guarantee they have the same idea about other regions. So that if they're, what are they? They're American? What?
I feel the big thing as
They've
well,
got-
like you
no,
kind
they're
of
playing their competitions at the moment. It's NA and EU.
Yeah.
Like we Cthulhu and I, Valley is a well-known name in a lot of the scenes at the moment. He's done Valorant, he's done Siege. He was out there working on Splitgate the other day. But I
Yeah.
mean, I would be genuinely embarrassed if they tried to get into the scene now.
Yeah, I think the big thing as well, you kind of have to introduce it at the start. Otherwise, if you get in like 6 to 12 months down the line, like all these other like scenes they've got going, right, they're already going to be taking your whole player base.
We also a couple of the Australian guys placed top 3 in one of the
Yeah.
qualifiers or something, didn't they?
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
For the North
Yep.
American competition.
Right.
So yeah, no,
This is
I
just
definitely
some of the stupid shit.
I definitely think that. So to return back to that whole question, like whether even we'll be seeing any traction from Halo, it will ultimately, depend still on ESL, because whilst the developer made the whole deal with ESL, and they're the ones, the ESL Australia is going to be leading the whole charge within ANZ, if they make it so that there's a clean run, like the way how even say now after God knows how many years now, UB now made with the ANZ the whole path to pro from literally amateur, literally like middle of bumfuck nowhere in your standings to possibly becoming a pro. If ESL does the same thing with Halo, it's gonna be a boom, because from there on they can farm up the fact that, again, client is free to play. For you to get into multiplayer, it literally costs you nothing, $0 dues. And if they can make it so that get maybe even the Pro-Am, get some of the qualifiers for like upcoming, call it Pro League, however you want to fucking call it, get the something across the lines similar to, I guess, LPL Open / Evo, to be that semi competitive setup.
Except not LPL.
Except
not
not
LPL.
Except not
ESL
LPL.
Open.
I'll say that for once. But yeah, like make it like an open tournament, make it like a semi-comp tournament, and make it pro tournament, or like call it Challenger League for the middle ground.
Fucking Rec G and Halo.
Reg G and Halo.
I mean, they could definitely put like a
phenomenal
rank bracket on it, like say, like
Yes.
you got to be plat or gold or something like
Yeah,
what
or a rank
Apex
bracket.
had.
Yeah.
So that's fine in my eyes, but yeah, I would like to see how they go about allowing multiple tiers of players to be able to play.
True.
I think a big thing for me as well. I think for ESL, if they follow the same guidelines as what they do with Rocket League at the moment, I think they'll be fine. Because with how Psyonix has laid everything out, as we've discussed previously, they've done extremely well with how they've kind of introduced the international opportunities as well through teams. Obviously, we've seen Renegades and GZ qualify recently for Sweden. I think if ESL runs along the same lines as they did Rocket League, the whole... Like, it's quite literally the same reflection with the timeline they've got to how Psyonix is doing their events. I think the big question for me personally is how the broadcast will be run. Because I know with... Rocket League does really well with that, and ESL does the hosting for it. I know with CS they do really well with it. StarCraft is a little bit on the fence, as per normal, but I think the production value is the big question, because Halo previously, like, I wasn't in esports back when it started, but just seeing some of the old VODs and such that I've been watching recently from it, there's a lot that you can do with it, especially with such an older scene. Like, again, these people are probably between 30 to 40 years of age, right? And for the most of these guys, like, they're going to be competing. They're probably going to have, like, their kids probably there with them, like, just watching.
Yeah.
You'll probably see that a lot of the guys who are probably too old to play will be observing, because they will have observer experience, and they will be
Or
able
shifting
to
into
bring
coaching roles.
Probably
or
I'd say
coaching
coaching
roles,
more so
something
than
like
not,
that.
because ESL's all
Well, it's
that.
already
It's-
Halo Infinite's come out with like VOD, like the VOD system is like absolutely impeccable, and like this is on day one release, so if that's what they got for VOD,
They've really thought of it. They've really thought of hey, we want people to make content with our game, even without being able to stream. We want them to still make videos and such, along with, hey, we still need something for live streaming. They've included it all because I think they've built this game around the competitive standpoint.
Yes.
I don't think they've given they've left the like the casual gameplay off on the side, and they've gone, hey, we want to focus on pro plays. That's what we want to focus on, because that's what's going to bring us ideally the most amount of money. Because the more people you have competing at a pro level, the more money is going to get injected from fan base.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you guys have seen their microtransactions. Like, it's not cheap.
No.
Yep.
Like, I think like was it 1,000 of their points? Someone was $15, and that gets you the battle pass.
Yep.
So
Just one of the team
Yeah.
skins.
Yeah.
yeah. So
That's cool as well. Just touching on it, the battle pass is actually permanent. It's not like
Yes.
a seasonal thing. Like, you pay $15 and you keep that like forever. Like, you don't lose it after a season. And I think the cool thing as well, they've already released obviously the partnership program in I think it's EU and NA, kind of like a mishmash of the
I think-
two. I don't
yeah,
know.
there's a few in
So
NA as well.
so from what I understand, they're only focusing on EU and NA at the moment.
Yeah, so there has
until
been
there's gonna be more
talks about Oceania also having their stuff into the game.
Yeah,
down,
and
which is good.
Japan as well.
Yeah, so I know I'd personally pick Japan Halo over Australia personally if I wanted to get into it. I
Well-
would be very intrigued about that.
I think as a whole they should open up to worldwide. If they have Australian partners, that would make it a bit more easier for the region to really get used to the game and get used to its creators and whatnot. while opening up to another market of people as well. Like if you have someone like, who would be a really good choice in this one? We'll go with someone who's more Fortnite oriented, like say Aussie Antics, right?
Yeah.
Say he goes on and plays one game of Halo or becomes a partner for whatever reason. His fan base alone, what everyone under 17 years old plays video games.
I mean, you've seen
So-
Dr. Disrespect's whole leaked skin.
Yeah,
Halo.
Dr. Disrespect. Yeah. So like if you get people like that, like if Lachlan as well, if he went into Halo, like holy shit, like that's probably one of the biggest things they could do in the way of having an audience come in from a certain region.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're looking into and what they're trying to achieve. They're trying to they're trying to overtake every other game.
They said I saw some couple of posts. I could be wrong again, but all major Halo competitions are going to be co-streamable.
Oh,
Yes.
I think someone posted. So anyone can co-stream a Halo event, which is,
That's
it's huge. Siege has been begging for that opportunity, even just for content creators, for the longest time, and we've been told no again and again and again. But you look at the audiences that the likes of Shroud brings in, and you're like, they've only got this number. But then you tack on another 46,000 that are currently watching that same event from Shroud's channel. And I think, I honestly am impressed by the way that the Halo team have come in. They've learned from a number of mistakes from other esports and stuff. I mean, they are doing everything that Valorant and ANZ failed to do in its inception. And I think Halo has been watching, saying, you know what, if we get this right, we can blow everything out of the water. And they're on track to do that.
Well, they've got people that actually understand how esports and how the player and market value works. While over in Valorant, and well, I've had connections to Riot. I've talked to some people in Riot before, and oh my god, they have no clue. They legitimately do not know how to do their job. Like full stop. I was seeking some questions revolving FIFA, and I was like, oh hey, I just wanted to see what your guidelines are and your rule book, blah 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 blah. But I can't find anything. There's nothing up. Like there's 100 different rules and 100 different game types out there. I just want to know what your standard is. And they're like, oh yeah, we don't really know. I was like, what do you mean you don't know? Like you got to have something.
Wow.
And that's where Halo and the people at Halo, that's where they differ, because they have those people who have been doing this for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
They understand how it all works.
Like it's literally like it had a story almost exactly as long as Counter-Strike has had, but just without the success, unfortunately. It's one of the longest running franchises in a competitive environment. You've got it's crazy how much this market is going to appeal. I mean, you're going to have people in their mid-40s, even 50s potentially, looking to get into the game, and not necessarily at a competitive level, but even casually.
Yeah.
So,
I think this is
honestly,
also this is
I'm
a big
excited.
opportunity for APAC COD as well, mind you, because Call of Duty has just absolutely shit the bed nose.
We have COD? No, that's a surprise.
So
to me.
this genuinely speak. I know JDU from Vertex has been harassing all these players to go to Halo, which I'm not against. I reckon that would be a big thing.
COD's dead. They have no intention, I don't think, to even try and save it. I think they've milked what they could, and now they've gone, screw it.
Yeah.
That's what happens when your platform changes every fucking year. I'm sorry.
That's
We're
what
coming
happens
up with
Every
a new
year,
COD game.
every couple of months, they change
Yeah.
something.
Well, no,
It's
you
like,
come out with a new Call of Duty game that changes the entire environment of the battlefield, and you're like, how are people meant to keep up? I'm sorry. Like, I get that, you want to make money off something, but at least keep some level of consistency in your competitive environment.
Yeah.
no, that's the thing. They don't care about the competitive environment.
Yeah, and I don't think many of the players even realize that. Like, there's been so much stuff on Twitter with everyone just saying to the COD players, you need to do this, you need to do this, and they're all just like, nah, we can't be asked. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. But Halo is like pretty well COD. Like, it's a very, very similar game in some
Well,
aspects.
it's just as old as COD.
Yeah.
probably better in my honest opinion.
But Halo has had its niche fan base. Like Call of Duty only really started its niche fan base probably in the late 2000s, between probably 2006 to 2010. That's where it really started having its niche fan base, because all the CODs previous to that, I mean, they were campaign orientated. While
Yeah.
Halo, on the other hand, still had its competitiveness.
Yeah.
It still had its, 5v5s, it still had its capture the flags, and then they started going with different games like Oddball and stuff like that as well, King of the Hill, etc. It still had that competitive standpoint, while with
Let's
Call of
make
Duty...
Griffball a comp game. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ, I'd love to see some Griffball and pro play.
While with Call of Duty, all its older games, its multiplayer was, well, arse. No one wanted to play it because it was just arse. And that's why I think Halo is much better in the way of multiplayer, because they've been focusing on the multiplayer from, day dot. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever did it, but me back in high school, we used to load up the old Halo 1 and play on the Warsong Gulch on the computers, just in the bloody PC rooms and whatnot, just smashing it out.
We tried, but we weren't able to. It was genuine.
Oh, we had multiple files under multiple files of Halo. It was unbelievable.
We literally got CS Portable. For
yeah,
one
we had
day.
CS for a while. Yeah.
And literally, it was the most traffic
What
the
year was
computer
it?
lab had seen.
Shut up.
Since its initiation at the school, and that's how they figured out something was going on.
What year do you reckon this is? Just out of curiosity, like 2000.
2006, 2007.
When you
Yeah.
were born, Joe.
Just got out of primary school.
When I was in high school. Yeah.
Nah,
Yeah, I'm thinking
for me, I think
about
at least, well, being back in Russia, I think the main thing was obviously what was CS 1.6 kind of. I was either that or Warcraft 3. Maybe funnily enough, Worms was like another like big.
Worms was the shit.
Worms were like it used to be like if you suck absolute ass at either CS or Warcraft 3, aka the original Dota mod, and Worm. So yeah, it was you would return back to Worms, return to Monkey, and just play that.
Honestly, I reckon there'd be a market for it. Competitive, like tier 1 world.
Look, competitive.
There
competitive
was an
Worms
actual
went hard.
league with a $25,000 prize pool.
Yeah, Worms went hard.
And it actually got a really huge viewer base for even back in the day. It has something like 10,000 people watching it.
Yeah.
No, they need to go mobile. In 2021, they need to go Worms mobile
God.
and release it to like Korea or something. That honestly, it'd surpass. It would take over like any major esport event.
We just need to ban Halo in Korea just so we can at least get.
So we can at least win a
They
championship.
can't be successful at everything.
Yeah. And like the stream's got to be there as well. Like there needs to be more. And speaking of streams, we'll move on to our next topic.
Oh yes.
We'll move on to our hotspot. Now, a hotspot is for those who do not know, we put something on the hot plate and we really roast the shit out of it and talk about how much they've absolutely failed at
Let it
everything.
sizzle.
Yeah.
Let
Now-
it burn.
The topic of today is Streamlabs versus OBS. Now, I'm not sure if anyone's been following on the Twitter feeds and whatnot, but OBS have finally come out and gone, hey, just to let you know, we have told you not to use our name, and yet you still are using our name, and now you've come up with a new platform and are charging people lots and lots and lots of money. So can you please, take the name away? Now, initially, Streamlabs came back and went, oh, no, you guys gave us the permission, blah, 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 and now all those tweets are gone. They've deleted them. And then they've come back and gone, we've taken OBS off our name now, and we're going to rename. And yet on their website, it's still got OBS everything. Like, if you go have a look, it still says it all there. Now, I'm not sure about your experience with Streamlabs. Like, what have you guys used in the past? Like, what do you think has been better?
I was about to ask that. Like, if we just want to go around, Tony, I guess if we start with you, do you use Streamlabs or do you use
It is
OBS?
OBS.
Like personal
It is
opinion.
OBS. I did experiment for a few months with Streamlabs because it was more intuitive because it had like a few more little functions I could like for someone who's obviously new to streaming shit like that. It's pretty hard to work everything out.
Okay.
But OBS without a doubt, fucking.
Yeah, Cthulhu, what about you? Do you typically do much, I guess, relating to streaming or anything like that?
I, quite rarely dabble in that. Then for a brief moment in the run, I actually would differentiate. So I would have OBS for anything that is like actually serious for production, and then Slobs would be there for personal streaming whenever I couldn't be bothered, setting up whatever the alerts and all that shebang.
Yeah.
But obviously later down the line, I would completely uninstall Slobs, given the fact that some of the newer titles I couldn't even properly run them on like actually like good frame rate. So I would just switch over to OBS, do like a bootleg setup, which I later on kind of ended up sticking around and making it borderline like, well, quote unquote my
I'll go
brand.
into detail
yeah.
soon as to why all that happened.
Yeah.
Panda, what's been
is
your
the-
experience with OBS and Slobs?
For the most part, I've used OBS just because it's usually stream packages for an esport thing. I've tried streaming, but it's just because I never got affiliate or anything like that in the early days when it first came out. So my account is just bare bones, and it's just too much fucking work to sit there and commit the time to actually get affiliate. So I literally, like, I'll stream once every now and then, and even then it'll just be us playing a game together and just fucking around, and there's no real commitment to get affiliate. And usually if we're running something, we've got Nuttery doing it anyway, so he's got V.
I mean, you tried to do that with the whole stats stream, technically.
I tried, but again, it's not worth the fucking effort, honestly. Like, because it all becomes about just making up the hours that you need to get in the days, and that's not how I would want to do anything if I wanted to stream. So it's especially, for someone like me, if I'm doing something, I want to be enjoying it, or it has to be for a purpose, and unfortunately, just streaming for the sake of streaming to get the affiliate status was not it. But yeah, OBS has always been the one that I work with. I've tried Streamlabs a couple of times, but it's just never felt quite as good as OBS. And this is, having not set up a package or anything, like literally, like I said, bare bones. It's me, and then the gameplay.
Just camera in game.
Yeah. So no alerts or anything like that. But I mean, OBS has just always been so much more straightforward.
Yeah.
At least personally for me, when it comes down to it, I use Streamlabs primarily for console stuff. So when it comes down to Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, just those specific games, I find Streamlabs is a little bit better because it's lower FPS needed. But then when it comes to, if I want to stream Valorant, it's like my FPS just tanks if I don't use OBS.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a lot of the things as well, at least in the past whenever I've streamed. It's like, Slobs as a platform, they don't give a shit, I guess, about the quality. And even then, if you're looking at, I guess, like, Streamlabs requires you to pay to do certain things, and OBS does everything for free.
Yes.
That's the other key thing.
Yeah. The biggest thing, I think, like, because when I started streaming years ago, it's a while back now, I was using Streamlabs, and then I was like, why am I tanking frames? Like, what's happening? And then a friend of mine was like, oh, I'll try OBS. So I was like, okay, I'll try, OBS Studio and whatnot. And then I noticed, I was like, I want to go on Task Manager and check something. Streamlabs OBS uses 10 times the amount of CPU power than OBS does.
Yeah.
Yike.
Because they have all these programs in the background running, like they have all the alert systems and whatnot that are all integrated into it. And so it uses up so much more processing power. That's why a lot of those frame issues were coming out. So if you're running like for me, I was running PUBG. Now back in the day, PUBG was very unoptimized. Like it would used to tank your CPU and GPU. And so running that plus Streamlabs plus, probably have my stream in the background so I could, have chat, or if I could switch over to music, etc. So you're running at 100+% on your CPU, causing your frames to drop. I was like, screw this, swapped to OBS. Oh, I'm back down to 60%, using everything. Streamlabs is just, they don't give a shit about optimization. They just want people to pay money because they think if they have enough money to pay for the stuff on Streamlabs, they have enough money to fork out for an A-tier computer. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, your clientele, 90% of your clientele do not have those god-tier PCs. They're able to take your shitty bloody program.
Yep.
But I'll put up the tweet in a minute where OBS said, near the launch of Slobs, Streamlabs reached out to us about using the OBS name. We kindly asked them not to. They did so anyway and followed up by filing a trademark. Now, how much of a dog act is that?
Yeah. That's
They've
just ass.
intentionally gone out and stolen that brand, stolen that name. Now, there's a whole legal parameter here where if OBS wanted to, they could sue.
Yeah.
and they could sue for every earning Streamlabs has done while using OBS name.
Well, it's not just OBS though. There's been, I think, it was Streamlight or something as well. Like there was another 2 or 3 brands that got in the mix saying they ripped off
Yeah.
their website and everything
Yeah,
like that.
so
as
they
well.
copied their entire platform, the way it works. So if someone was to write in OBS, it would come up. So they even like
Down to
paid to make
reviews,
sure
yeah.
that their Streamlabs thing came up before OBS Studio, and so people would always go click on Streamlabs and look exactly the same as OBS. So if someone's watching a YouTube video, right, and someone was showing OBS Studio, they'll click on Streamlabs. It looks exactly the same. And so they'll think it's, that they could follow the steps quite easily because it's all the same. And that's where it got really like, you guys are just quite literally trying to hide OBS Studio under the covers, trying to rake in as much money as possible using their branding. And it's just disgusting to see.
Yeah.
Like, how could you do that at all?
Money. It's happened time and time again. It's not the first time. It won't be the
Where's
last
Mr.
time.
Krabs when you need them the most?
I don't see them recovering from this. Actually, I really legitimately do not.
I
Um,
hope they do
they-
sue and the platform just goes.
Yeah.
I
Just-
don't think
just
they
make
will. I don't think
Streamlabs die
OBS
out.
Studio will sue at all because I
Well, it's not
think
just OBS though. What about when there's still 2 or 3 other brands that got ripped off as well? Like they could sue as well technically. So
yeah, they're a bit there.
it's borderline.
The main thing with OBS is that they've stolen the OBS name. That's the biggest thing. They've stolen OBS trademark and whatnot, and use it as their own. That's the biggest issue, and then making money off their name. While with the others, all they've done is copied layouts. So, unless they've gone out and they've patented that layout, which isn't like it's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's still plagiarism. Like you're openly plagiarizing a setup, and I doubt it would be that hard to argue in court.
Yeah, but you have
they've
to.
literally
The
just
whole
gone
thing
and
with
done
courts
this.
is you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that they had the intention to steal that idea. Now, when you're talking about layouts are a dime a dozen. They all look the same in a general aspect. So how could you say that they stole something when it looks the same as something else and something else and something else? Or they may have gotten, they'll just go, oh, we got ideas from them, and then we use this idea from this platform and this idea from that platform, and then we amalgamated them all together, just as an idea with our stuff. That proves beyond reasonable doubt that they had no intention, quote unquote. And that's the issue. That it's too hard to prove in court. Even though everyone knows that they were doing it to steal shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, from a business standpoint, it's a smart option. OBS should 100% sue. Absolutely gut Streamlabs because 1, it removes competition, and 2, it's just shitty
Yeah.
business.
Streamlabs is already dead. Like, the amount of people that have tweeted, I'm not using your branding or I'm not using your platform anymore is wild. A lot of people have gone, hey, you've charged me $250 for this. What the hell? I just noticed this, and I haven't done anything. I haven't used your platform, but I don't know where I've been charged. So I think OBS or Streamlabs, are really trying to scrape what they can together and get out of the game.
Would be surprised.
Yeah.
I kind of hope OBS actually makes their.
I mean,
the system a little bit cleaner
yeah.
as well. Come to think of it, 'cause
With-
it does look
with
a bit
all of that
outdated
as well.
The whole thing with OBS is it's simple. That's what I like about it. It's not convoluted. You don't have to click on 100 different things to get to one thing. It's right click, click, right click, click, right click, click, or click this and go to that. That's what I like about it. It's nice and simple. It does the job. If you start adding in all these other things into it and start trying to mix all the other stuff around, that's when you start. Well, 1, you're tanking into your CPU, and 2, people just get outright confused and just go, screw this, I'll use something else.
Well, OBS is simple, but it also has that potential for the high end stuff. You can integrate all sorts of things.
Well,
into
that's
it,
what
so.
that's what I like about the developer section, where it has all that extra stuff. Like, it has a whole heap of shit. I haven't even gone through it all, because it's just so much. But if you're a streamer looking to actively improve, quality or have things going on in your background while you're maybe just chatting or whatnot, that would be something to use because they have a lot of little like widgets already inbuilt into it, which is quite nice. And I would recommend people learning and working that out.
Yeah. Now the other thing as well, like, because there's been a whole lot of talk as well between the content creators as well. So like, yes, because a lot of majority of the crowd, like in streaming as well, been, if not doing their own custom stuff, because I know a few streamers, like, they just flat out code all of their like alerts, all of that stuff, graphically wise themselves. If not that, majority of the consensus was we yeeted to Streamlabs. Like, whether you like it or not, you at the very least would end up using their widgets through browser source and whatnot. There's been actually, like, as of recently, I believe, OBS actually posted on Twitter saying that they are now working with Stream Elements, like, because Stream Elements also reached out to them because they had, like, the whole plugin and whatnot happening. Which, again, like, see, Stream Elements did it the right way. They you know, talked about it all. You know, they get the whole talk about it, and because now technically, in one shape or the other, OBS now endorsed Stream Elements. Now technically we have yet another competition, but in general, that whole competition about with Streamlabs possibly just flat out vanishing in the near future, like, that whole market is going to be open for quite a lot of smaller companies that would probably do like similar layouts and whatnot, but like similar service. But this would open a whole new level of competition as well, which something to also worth mentioning, because yes, while Streamlabs should at this point just flat out die out, like close the apps on the whole shop, this would open a whole brand spanking new hole for other companies to fill out, which is probably going to end up making a large, and I mean large, amount of competition happen.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I think that will probably close us out there. We've had quite a very long and great discussion with Panda and Cthulhu. Are there anything you two guys want to add in? Anything you want to plug? Go for it. You know, it's free real estate.
Standard shit, you know, just
Yeah.
I will do the obvious one. OCL OCN Relegations coming up next weekend. Fury might be there. We'll have to see. Look, honestly, I'm super excited for it. Cthulhu and I are going to be watching that one avidly. We might even do a bit of a show later this week to sort of discuss what we're predicting going into it a bit deeper. Then you've got OCL Finals, which, you know, start of December, and then we're, you know, we as a group, so there's me, Cthulhu, Proto, Nuttery, and we're looking at maybe two or three other people getting involved. Jumpstream, yeah, the meme king himself from the OCL. We're going to be putting together something for the 6 Invitational qualifiers for South APAC. Potentially APAC North as well, if we can find the time for it. So, yeah, check out the socials. I'm at BluePanda_cast. Cthulhu is Cthulhu ANZ.
Or for spelling reasons as well, it's CTHULHUANZ as well. And that's on both Twitter, Twitch, and whatever other platforms.
So
we'll be chucking up a couple of announcements about that in the coming weeks in terms of where you can catch us.
Yeah. Go check them out, everyone. They're great guys, great casters. They do some amazing stuff out in the world. Joe, anything you would like to say?
Not really, honestly. I guess on a personal basis, for any Australians or New Zealanders who want to tune into PGC as well recently, just so I can plug this as well. It will be from Wednesday to Friday for the weekly event, plus the finals on the weekends, so Sunday and Saturday, basically at 9 p.m. AEDT. So if anyone has any interest in watching that, feel free to do that. At least after this podcast goes up, we'll probably be doing a viewer party.
We'll be doing a viewing party probably the next 30 minutes for us.
Even in the next weekend or so. But anyway,
another one.
This has been fun. This has been Bring the Heat, episode number 7. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube, make sure to do that and follow us on our Spotify and Anchor profiles. But we'll see you guys next week.
And cut. Cool.
Oh.
Yes.
Did anyone see Ducky's tweet? I retweeted it. He's like, oh yeah, Valorant got best game in every region but OS. Yep.